I overheard my fiancée say she's settling for me, so I canceled the wedding and kicked her out. I wasn't supposed to be home early that day, but a basketball game wrapped up quicker than expected, and I returned sooner than planned. What I overheard shattered my world. My fiancée Jay was talking to one of her friends. Her friend had just gotten out of a bad relationship, and I caught the middle of their conversation. Jay said something that froze me in my tracks. I guess I'm settling for him, but after all the idiots I dated, he's a safe choice. Settling? I stood there, unable to move. My mind raced as Jay described our life together. Well, mostly what I provided for her. She talked about my job, my financial security, our beach house, and the life I built. But she never mentioned love. Not once did she mention how much I cared for her, how I supported her dreams, or the moments we shared. It felt like everything I thought we had was built on lie. For context, I work in property insurance from home and flip houses on the side. I'm proud of the life I created. The beach house we live in was a project I took on myself. I bought it as a fixer-upper and turned it into something beautiful. I own other properties that are rented out, and all my hard work has paid off. But to Jay, it seemed none of that mattered beyond the comfort it provided her. I spent the whole night reeling. Then, in a fit of desperation, I went through her phone. I knew her password but had never looked before. What I found broke me even more. In her messages with friends, Jay constantly repeated how I was safe and drama-free. She wanted stability after her tumultuous relationships, but love wasn't a part of the equation. Reading these words was like torture. I thought I was the love of her life, but apparently I was just a convenient choice. I felt like my heart had been stabbed over and over again. I wanted to confront her immediately, to scream at her, to make her feel the pain I was feeling. But I held back. Instead, I sat there, stewing in my own misery, unsure of what to do. Jay doesn't work right now. She quit her job a while ago to try her hand at real estate, though I'm not sure if she wanted to pursue a new career or just thought her looks would carry her through. She lives in my house. Her name isn't even on the deed. The car she drives? It's in my name because she couldn't qualify for financing on her own. I thought we were building a life together, but now I see it's all in my name. I couldn't sleep that night and the anger simmered. I wanted to throw her out, to pack up her stuff in trash bags and leave her on the street. Would that make me the bad guy? The next day, I couldn't bring myself to act immediately. I kept my distance. I didn't call her from work like I usually did, and I made excuses to go to bed early. She knew something was up, but I wasn't ready to face her. A few days later, I finally told Jay what I'd overheard. I told her how deeply it hurt me, how betrayed I felt. As the words left my mouth, she started crying. Tears rolled down her face, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she apologized. She admitted that when we first started dating, she wasn't in love with me. She had just heard from a mutual friend that I was a good guy, stable, and reliable. She wanted safety, something she hadn't found with other men. Eventually, she said, she did fall in love with me. She loved me dearly now. But it didn't make me feel any better. I told her about the messages I'd read, and that's when she got angry. She accused me of violating her privacy, of betraying her trust. I hadn't set out to invade her privacy, but I knew her password because she's careless with it. It wasn't hard to figure out. After the initial anger, she broke down, sobbing again. She admitted she still feels attracted to the type of men she used to date, the bad boys, the chaotic ones. But now, she knows better. That's why she settled for me. Those words destroyed me. I told her it wasn't going to work. Our ideas of love, marriage, and trust were too different. I couldn't move forward knowing she was settling for me. I went through her messages, and the trust between us was shattered. We agreed to separate. She packed up and went to stay with a friend. I offered to help her move when she found a place. I even told her she could keep the car. I had been too angry before, but leaving her destitute didn't feel right. Still, the moment she walked out the door, my emotions hit me like a tidal wave. I cried for hours. It's been a month now since that day. My friends have rallied around me. They brought too much food and too many drinks, and we spent an entire weekend tailgating for a college football game. They helped me laugh again. There were jokes about settling that made us all crack up. They've been my support system through all of this. Jay and I have texted a little since then, mostly checking in on each other. She's still confused, not understanding what she did wrong. To me, it's simple. You don't settle for someone you love. You don't build a life on pragmatism alone, without passion. I've thought a lot about relationships since then. If someone is settling for financial security, that's not what I want. I'm not rich, I still have to work hard to maintain what I have. There are plenty of men out there who make more money than me, and if that's her main concern, what happens when one of those guys comes along? I decided to sell the house. Jay loved it, but now it just reminds me of everything that's gone wrong. I need a fresh start. After that emotional meeting with my father and Tammy, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. While I had taken a big step forward by allowing them back into my life, I knew it wouldn't be easy to move past everything. Forgiving them, especially my father, wasn't something I could just do overnight. But maybe, over time, things could improve. In the following weeks, I spent more time with my brother. The more I got to know him, the more I realized how much I had missed out on during those years of silence between me and my dad. He was a ball of energy, full of questions and stories. He was so innocent, so unaware of the complexities of our family's past. Every time we were together, I felt like I was rebuilding a small part of myself, the part that had been fractured when I cut ties with my father. As for Tammy, we kept our distance. I could tell she was trying, but there was still an awkwardness between us that couldn't be ignored. She apologized again, more sincerely this time, and said she was working on herself. I appreciated that, but I wasn't ready to embrace her as the mother figure she once was. Not yet, at least. During all of this, Sarah kept trying to reach out. I had blocked her on all platforms, but she found ways to send me messages through mutual friends. It was exhausting. She wanted so badly to be a part of my life again, but her actions had caused too much damage. I wasn't ready to open that door. One day, after another long text from a friend saying Sarah wanted to talk, I sat down with my mom to discuss everything. I explained that while I understood people made mistakes, I just wasn't in the right place to deal with Sarah's attempts at reconciliation. My mom, as always, was supportive. She reminded me that it was okay to set boundaries, and that just because someone asks for forgiveness doesn't mean I have to give it on their timeline. Life moved forward, slowly but surely. My 18th birthday had come and gone, and I was preparing for my next big chapter, college. It felt like a fresh start, a chance to leave behind some of the pain and start rebuilding my life on my own terms. But part of me knew that I couldn't fully move forward without dealing with the lingering issues with my father. A week before I left for school, Dad called. He asked if we could meet up, just the two of us, one last time before I headed off. I was hesitant but agreed. We met at a coffee shop in town, and for the first time in what felt like forever, we had a real conversation. He told me how much he regretted the way things had gone and how he wished he had been there for me during those tough years. I listened, but I wasn't ready to forgive him completely. "I'm not asking for you to forgive me today," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "But I want to be a part of your life again, in whatever way you'll allow." I nodded, feeling a mix of emotions. "I can't promise anything, Dad, but I'm willing to try." We left it at that. I didn't know where things would go from there, but at least it was a start. As I packed up my things for college, I felt the sense of closure begin to settle in. I had faced the hardest parts of my past, and now it was time to look to the future. It wouldn't be easy, but I knew that I had the strength to handle whatever came next. And as for my father, only time would tell if we could truly rebuild our relationship. But for now, I was at peace with the fact that I had done everything I could to heal. As I settled into my new life at college, the adjustment was both exhilarating and challenging. It felt like I was stepping into a new world, away from the complicated past and into a future full of possibilities. My classes were engaging, and I found solace in the routines of student life. I threw myself into my studies and made new friends, embracing the freedom and independence I had longed for. But even as I enjoyed the newness of it all, the remnants of my past continued to linger. My relationship with my father was still unresolved, and the uncertainty of it weighed on me. I continued to receive occasional messages from him, each one more apologetic than the last. I read them but chose not to respond, needing to focus on my own path for the time being. One evening, while I was catching up with a friend in the common room, I received a call from my mother. Her voice was calm, but tinged with concern. She told me that Dad had been trying to make amends and was seeking therapy to work through his issues. It was a small but significant step, and I was glad to hear that he was taking responsibility. "It's a start," my mom said, her voice hopeful. "I know it's not easy, but he's genuinely trying." I appreciated her update and felt a flicker of hope that maybe, someday, things could get better. But I knew that healing would take time and that I had to be patient with myself and with him. A few months into the semester, I received a surprise package from my father. Inside was a handwritten letter and a small leather-bound journal. The letter was heartfelt and expressed his deep regret and his commitment to change. He spoke about how he was trying to be a better person and how he hoped we could start rebuilding our relationship, even if it took time. The journal was filled with reflections and goals he had set for himself, along with notes about his therapy sessions. It was a raw and honest account of his journey towards self-improvement. I was touched by the gesture and decided to keep the journal as a reminder of his efforts and a symbol of the possibility of healing. Around the same time, I received an unexpected message from Tammy. It was a simple hello with an apology for the past. She mentioned that she had been working on herself as well and wanted to make amends. I read her message with mixed feelings. The wounds were still fresh, and while I was willing to listen, I wasn't ready for a full reconciliation. I decided to respond politely but set clear boundaries. I thanked her for reaching out and told her that while I was open to communication, I needed time to process everything before considering any form of relationship. As the semester progressed, I found myself growing more confident and self-assured. My focus remained on my studies and building new connections. The occasional updates from my family were reminders of the complex dynamics at play. But I was learning to manage my emotions and not let the past overshadow my present. During the winter break, I returned home to visit my mom. It was a bittersweet reunion. Seeing my old house brought back memories, but it also marked a new chapter in my life. I spent time with my mom, and we talked about the future. We discussed the possibility of meeting with Dad and Tammy at some point, but for now, we both agreed that it was best to take things slowly. The holidays were a time for reflection and gratitude. I appreciated the progress I had made and was thankful for the support of my friends and family. As the new year began, I felt a renewed sense of optimism. I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead and to continue building a life that was authentically my own. As the spring semester began, I felt a renewed sense of purpose and clarity. The initial excitement of college had settled into a rhythm, and I was finding my footing both academically and socially. The friendships I was building were genuine and fulfilling, offering a sense of belonging that I hadn't felt in a long time. One day, as I was engrossed in studying at the library, I received a text from my mom. It was an invitation to a family gathering she was planning, a chance for a fresh start. She suggested it might be an opportunity to see Dad and Tammy in a more neutral, supportive environment. The idea was both daunting and intriguing. I hadn't seen Dad in months, and the thought of being in the same room with him and Tammy stirred up a mix of apprehension and curiosity. After some contemplation, I agreed to attend the gathering. It was important for me to take this step, not just for my family, but for my own peace of mind. I wanted to approach the situation with an open heart, even if it meant facing uncomfortable truths. The day of the gathering arrived. The setting was relaxed, an outdoor barbecue at my mom's house with a small group of close family and friends. The atmosphere was warm and inviting, with the scent of grilled food and laughter filling the air. As I arrived, I was greeted by my mom's familiar embrace and the comforting presence of friends who had supported me throughout this journey. When Dad and Tammy arrived, there was a noticeable tension in the air. I took a deep breath and reminded myself to stay composed. Dad approached me with a tentative smile, and I could see the vulnerability in his eyes. Tammy, too, seemed sincere in her attempt to make amends. I acknowledged them with a polite nod, trying to keep the interaction cordial. Throughout the afternoon, the focus was on enjoying the company and the food. Conversations flowed, and slowly, the initial awkwardness began to dissolve. I found myself engaging in lighthearted chats, and even shared a few laughs with Dad and Tammy. It was a small but significant step toward rebuilding our relationship. At one point, I found myself sitting next to Dad on the porch, away from the hustle and bustle of the gathering. He looked at me with a mixture of hope and apprehension. "I know this isn't easy," he began. "I appreciate you coming today. I want you to know that I'm committed to being better, not just for you, but for myself." I nodded, appreciating his honesty. "It's a start, Dad. I'm not ready to move past everything just yet, but I'm willing to try, one step at a time." He sighed, looking relieved. "That's all I can ask for. Thank you." Later, Tammy and I had a brief conversation. It was clear that she had been working on herself, and while I still had reservations, I respected her efforts. We spoke about the importance of boundaries and mutual respect. And though we didn't delve into deep emotional territory, There was an understanding that progress was being made. As the day drew to a close, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. The gathering hadn't been a miracle cure for all the hurt, but it was a step forward. I was learning to navigate the complexities of my relationships with patience and compassion. In the weeks that followed, I continued to focus on my studies and personal growth. I maintained open communication with my mom, who remained a pillar of support. I also kept in touch with Dad and Tammy, exchanging occasional messages and updates. It was a delicate balance, but I was learning to manage it with a sense of hope. The journey of rebuilding relationships was ongoing, but I was finding strength in the progress made and the support I had from those around me. As I prepared for the end of the semester and the summer ahead, I felt a renewed sense of purpose and a readiness to embrace whatever the future might bring. And so, with a heart that had begun to heal and a spirit that remained resilient, I looked forward to the new chapters of my life, knowing that the past, while never fully erased, was becoming a part of the story I was still writing.